Welcome. You're tuned to Resilience Radio, Episode 9 with Lisa Wanovich, poet. My name is Irvin Eisenberg. I'm the show host and owner of Resilience OT. The opinions on this show are not necessarily shared by me. I try to showcase a variety of different perspectives, and not everything will resonate with everyone. Additionally, none of the opinions on this show are meant to be medically diagnostic or prescriptive in any way. Today's guest is Lisa Wanovich. She has been an organic farmer for over 30 years in New York State, as well as a community herbalist who has studied with Matthew Woods, Brent, and Susan Weed. In addition, she's studied Reiki and studied with healers in Sri Lanka. Lisa has a BA in drama from Antioch and an MFA in poetry from Drew University. Lisa has mentored interns at Mountaindale Farm for 25 years and teaches gardening, cooking, and poetry at the Hancock Community Education Foundation in Hancock, New York. She has written field work and This Place Called Us, as well as there's an anthology she's edited, The Lake Rises, Stories for and About Our Bodies of Water. I have known Lisa for around 30 years myself, but mostly as the fun hippie mom of my childhood best friend. It's great to have you on today, Lisa.
Thank you, Irvin. It's good to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
So I was wondering if you could start us off with a poem.
I can. I have a poem here from my pandemic poem series, which I started once COVID hit. This is early on, and I haven't read this before, so I will read it. It's called Dressed. I never like getting dressed. Prefer nothing bunched, touching skin. Even the slightest pressure, a spider tickling. I chill easily. Cold settles in my head, seeps into my wrists, kidneys. There's the dilemma. So a farmer needs layers, long underwear, scarf, gloves, waterproof often, doubled wool hat, sun hat worn daily like underwear, dust mask when filling flats with soil. Peat, fine and light, sticks to the lungs, and dirt, so much, so many years, check my complaints at the door. I am outside, breathing. Red-winged blackbird, my faithful two-timing friend, calls from the pond.
Wow, I love that as an introduction. It covers so much. I've always known you through the sort of the lens of being my friend's mother, and it's really great to have the opportunity to talk with you as an adult and sort of in reflecting before this interview on just how much of an amazing woman you are with all of the different things you do. Um, I'm struck by a memory of, I believe I was standing out in your teaching herb garden, and I can't remember if you were talking to me or if I was overhearing you talking to somebody else, but you were talking about sort of the frustration of feeling like you're supposed to be assigned one thing as an adult that you do, your profession, your occupation, and you didn't like being pinned down to just being a farmer or an actor or an herbalist, and I'm sure you had other things in that list at the time. And that's that frustration of your identity not just being sort of your adult profession stuck with me sort of from in my own professional adulthood and such, as well as in study as an occupational therapist, thinking about how much there's so much that makes up people. So could you speak to the tapestry of the different passions and occupations you have and sort of how they overlap and inform each other?
Sure. It's I tried for different times in my life, and I to be one thing, but I didn't really have any choice, um, because that seemed pretty impossible. But once I embraced the idea of not being just one thing, I was able to relax. And I think it was Susan Weed, who was the first person I really studied herbalism with, who had gone through this whole thing of led me through this idea of burying normal. And once I did that, and this idea of all the parts of a person being a shield. And when I think of the shield, I'm not talking about so much as something to protect yourself, but also to surround yourself in. So yes, I am a farmer. People like to, and I am a poet. Though, and those are the two things at this point in my life that are the driving force in my life. Plants, and when I say plants, that means flowers, herbs, vegetables, trees. Plants have been, I really couldn't live without being in nature, being surrounded by plants. So, and nor could I really live if I wasn't able to write. And when either one of those things get too out of whack, I do. Like if I'm not writing, I say put the crazies on the page. I need that. And if I'm not outside, I go crazy too. So I need those things, and I think we all need, but we don't always realize. And I'm very fortunate to have a lifestyle where I can work and be outside. Where in the pandemic, I can see people. People come to get vegetables. People need herbs. They can come and pick some herbs here. So those are two big things. Of course, I'm a mother and I have a partner, my husband for many years. Those are huge parts that are parts of my life. And I think I look at everything as potential healing. I think herbs are amazing. I've seen them do things. They've done amazing things for me, for other people, but so has an idea that someone's ready to encompass, to take in, and so does a set of exercises that strengthen, or and so does meditation, and so does just breathing. So basically the language, to see. So I guess all this comes down to, and I'm really rambling, relationship. When I was thinking about this, I was thinking relationship. It's all about what is your relationship with yourself, with others, with the planet. And particularly now, we are so divided in this country, on this planet, and so for me, I couldn't really divide. I mean, I've done different things. I've lived in New York City. I've traveled. I've lived in a lot of places. I've worked in inside buildings. I've worked as a caterer. I've worked as an actor. But it was clear for me that my relationship with myself and the world and others was too limited, without literally having my feet on the ground. So, and once my feet are on the ground, then I can dream. And because otherwise the dream is more like crazy. It's just, you just, and I think a lot of that has happened with us in this time because we've been sold such a, so much nonstop information that I certainly take part of. It's so exciting, but it makes it really hard to put your feet on the ground when you've got these other things all the time at your disposal.
So it seems like you've got your various tools you use for self-care, your your poetry and the real groundedness that you do in your farming, and that you're able to find balance with that, or get resilience from that. Everyone's different, and this is the balance that you found. And there's so much you've done to help other people as well. Could you either speak to some advice you'd give people, or to how you being from that grounded place, how you've been able to help others?
Hmm. Um, well, first of all, I didn't mention that I've been practicing yoga for longer than I've been practicing farming and poetry. So that is also a grounding uh, that practice every morning or almost every morning uh, to center myself. My son, who you grew up with when I was raising my kids, when I wouldn't have that practice because it was just too much going on, too difficult to fit in or whatever. When he was really little, he will still say this story. He'd say things like, "Mom, have you done your yoga today?" And of course, the response was really like, "No, no, I'm not going to." So whatever your practice is, and it can be anything. I've been working with a young woman now she's on a residency for her final year in college, and she's working with nature and poetry and all kinds of things. And she was saying how easy it is to write, to be healthy, to spend some time when she first wakes up alone. And I don't think she ever really had that experience so much, but just recently. And it was amazing to see the difference in her work in that time. And when I say time alone, I mean, if you got a little baby, if you've got a 9 to 5 job, or if you've got whatever, it might be 5 minutes. It might be an hour for somebody. And for me, that has changed over time. I, I'll say kind of in jest, but in total seriousness, that I did maintenance yoga. And that might be for a week or two at the height of a lot of farming or a height of a lot of visitors or anything that is going on in my life. Part of me is going, you need to go deeper. You need to do that and know that I will and not beat myself up so much. So I would say be flexible. The lifestyle that I have is is malleable in a lot of ways, that if I had to go into a classroom at 7:30 or 8:45 or whatever time every morning 5 days a week, which many of my family are teachers, if I had to do that, I wouldn't have the same kind of flexibility that I have. And at the same time, nature doesn't care about your politics or your personal life. So, on one hand, it's a schedule that you better do it if you want food, or if you want, if you're trying to grow something, there are some set things. If it's going to frost, you better cover if you want anything left. And yet there is a flexibility. There is a give and take that for me, I think is really the core of health and happiness and relaxation, because I have a really very strong inner uh, taskmaster who's, got to do this, you got to do that. And I think so many of us do, wherever that comes from our parents or society or whatever. And at the same time, to be happy and navigate like difficult times, let alone fun times, easy times. It's like that we really need to, it's a dilemma. Let go and and yet get things accomplished, plan for the future. And now it's like we're in the middle of this pandemic where we don't know what the future is going to be. We can't even imagine. And I mean, I'm old. I mean, I've got, my kids are adults. I don't have everything in front of me that I'm building. I've already built a lot. It's not to say there aren't a lot of things I still want to do and that I would love to do, and I have plans, but I am not I'm not at the beginning of my life. And I think that to navigate, these times, I think we need to embrace some of the chaos as a part of life and know that it won't last forever. It's not going to be like this forever. I don't know how long it's going to be, but I just feel like that's so important with so many, whether you're planning like, oh, what am I going to be? What do I want to be? What do I want to accomplish? It's like, okay, I don't know, but I know that what is it right now? And it doesn't have to be forever, because you don't know. Things can, Americans change all the time. This idea that you do the same thing forever, that like in 1950s, and I don't is that hasn't been true for a long time. And now, who knows what? We're all like learning Zoom. I'm looking at you, a picture of you on a computer and talking to you, and it's like, oh, wacky. But I think we just have to kind of go with it and listen to, I think now is the first time that people are, I think, listening more than we have, because it's a lot, there's not as much chatter. I mean, I say that at the same time, I'm coming from a very privileged place, um, and that I have a lot of space. I'm a white older woman, and I know that um, I'm not rich. I work hard, but I've had support because of who I am, um, where it would be more difficult if I were not who I am.
I'm wondering if you got another poem you'd like to share with us.
Oh, I'm rambling. Yes, yes. Okay, let's see. Um, oh, I'm going to read this poem, which is in a anthology, Seeing Things anthology, and this was written before the pandemic, and it's kind of what I think we all miss, and it's called Mongaup Pond. This body of water, so simple, sitting aside next to who was at one time my flesh, missed, reunited, beside this shore chosen from a sign on the highway, not far from what was his home and still is ours. Near the friend's wedding site, after all night festivities and a rain, back and forth text, and now a picnic of party leftovers. Our fingers selecting chicken and olives from a tinfoil pan, no forks or napkins, nothing asked for, no regret. Moment of not wanting, stretched onward and inward, at rest. My hand on his shoulder, me taking up space between father and son, not fixing or revisiting, past, settled, like mud at the bottom, and we catfish hanging out, not even wanting the absent sun, shy behind the clouds, gratitude for a warm bench to sit upon and volley lazy questions with silences, stories and memory with noteworthy trees cushioning the hills, not even a bird to excite the view. Nothing wanted, nothing more than this that fills us.
Hmm. One of the things I love about your poetry is, I guess, for me, I sometimes when I'm listening to poetry, I lose the thread of what's going on. I get distracted by some pretty words or some part of it, and then I lose track of what's happening and sort of get lost in my own head and don't think I'm getting the message that the poet's intending. And I feel like, at least with the two examples you've given and from other poems I've heard, that you have a way of painting such a picture that draws me in, and I feel like I get better than I might often what you're trying to get across. I'm wondering, when you write, what's your goal as far as an audience or what you're hoping for people?
Hmm. Um, I usually, when I write, I'm following something. It can be a thought, a moment, a something I'm trying to, well, often it might be a particular person um, that I'm trying to pay homage to, or so I guess I feel like part of my intention is to share this, is to share my life and my point of view that I have chosen, or that I live this world that I was describing, that is so close to nature. It's so close to, it's kind of an old fashioned way of being, in not completely, but and I feel like that's a lens to look at the world. Um, I don't feel like I'm hiding living in the country at all. And I think part of the problems we're having politically is that I think there is a huge difference between the city and the rural, urban and rural life. And we're really at a clash and odds and division right now. And I feel like I it's a lens that I want to communicate. Probably, I feel like I can do it better in a poem than I can talking to people. It's clear. I'll go all around circles. It's not that I don't talk with people, and I think people enjoy listening to me, or they ask to talk to me. But um, I think I'm clearer in a poem. So clarity is something, and even if it's the clarity of not being clear, as in a dream, in a, I guess I'm trying to say the unsayable. That's one thing I tell my students, my fourth graders. It's like poetry tries to do what we cannot do, which is to say the unsayable. But we're going to still keep trying. I'm going to still keep trying to do that thing in between that I can't quite name or can't quite feel, this the thing that is why you and I are talking right now. 30 years when you were a child, as you're as adult, our relationships with people who aren't just us, and with the land and time and all that. So I feel like, to me, that's what's really interesting. That's art. For me, poetry, I mean, I love all art, all of it. I mean, if I could choose, I'd probably be a violinist, but that's not happening. Um, but so I feel like it's that thing that's so precious between us that I like to share, that says this is, and hopefully it's going to make you think a little differently, or open up something in you, the reader, to to view something else differently, and be, and be kinder at some point, perhaps, or more caring, or more conscious, or more aware, or more sad. We poets, we're like, yes, I made him cry. Yes, yippee. So because then you're not walking around feeling like you just want to burst open, then you can move on to the next thing. So I feel like that's, a poet's role is in some ways to be the mourner
Hmm.
for us all. And so that's part of it, that I'm just trying to give you an idea of ways that I'm feeling, and that hopefully that you may be feeling
Um,
or
thank,
thinking, seeing.
and something about what you're saying reminds me of a conversation I recently had with my father. He was talking about processing griefs, and that one of the things that writing for him does is helps him process grief and sort of cracking the shell of sadness, and sort of dropping that shield that you were talking about. That for him, the act of writing is that it does that, and it sounds like your hope is for the not just for it to be a helpful process for you, but to help other people drop their shield, so and be more authentic in that and feel their more raw feelings.
Yes, I think you could say that. I mean, I'm very much love the process of writing. Um, but I know enough about myself that I want to be heard. That's the harder part. To Well, they're both hard, but to get to be disciplined, like anything, it's a, it's takes commitment, it takes organization, it takes time, it takes bravery, to put yourself out there. Um, but I think a lot of it is about relationship. What is the relationship you want with your work? With And I think that's evolving for. I mean, the industry is evolving of poetry. It certainly is right now with the poet with the pandemic. But so and I'm changing also all the time. Like, what do I want now? And how is that different than in the past or in the future?
I'm struck by the term living tradition, that we have this tendency to romanticize a sort of farmers of yesteryear, or particular ancient rituals that people did, and like the image of what Native Americans were, forgetting that there are Native Americans now.
Mhm.
Um, and I feel like you you've got your feet firmly planted in the dirt as a farmer, and you're not, but you're still on the computer doing Zoom with people. You're not a hermit off in the middle of nowhere. You're actively involved in the world, and that sort of and that living tradition. Just something I was thinking about in response to your poetry and your way of life. There's nothing stagnant about it.
Mhm. No, it doesn't feel stagnant. Um, no, it doesn't. There's, and that's maybe one of the gifts of this time we live in. It's really easy to be connected. In fact, it's harder to spend the time, just to write a good poem is harder in terms of the pull of the world, pull of relationships. Um, I think that that's all I think for most artists, that's always you know, a, a challenge. But it does also help to have other people supporting you. It took me a long time to kind of realize that or actualize that you do need people you need a support system to write. This idea of the solitary writer, the solitary artist. If you look at artists, they have their people, they have their peeps, they have their sounding board, they have, and you share a piece of your work with somebody, and then your mind opens. This you get inspired, they get inspired, and I think that that's really crucial.
So, do you have any last bits of advice for the listeners?
Advice. Um, um, maybe extend yourself to somebody or something, somebody for sure, who's different. Um, First of all, in your mind, we're very divided, even in our information these days that we're receiving and sending out. And I just think it's so important for us to think and extend ourselves to people and situations that are outside of our comfort.
Hmm. Well, it's been really great talking to you today, Lisa. I was wondering if you could send us off with one last poem.
Okay, I can. I have two, and I'm going to choose. I think I'm going to say Dandelions for dinner. Spring won't choose the music, shuffles between mud and dirt. I am left footed, mattock swinging, digging a ditch for the always soggy spillover and gutter flow. Edging with rocks, I am again learning about boundaries. Hungry, the feral cat walks right into the barn past me and my cooing. Beyond, in the abandoned garden, cracks sprout between stone, teasel spiked, mugwort crazy. On the bank, open doll sized daffodils I cannot bear to cut, even one, sliding back down the ridge. On break from sewing, I am unscheduled, uncensored from indentations, countless seeds and regrets slipped wasteful through my fingers. A respite Wanderer in wild meadow, I am vowing diligence, starting over, digging in wholesome germ filled earth. Whole roots let go, sawtooth leaves disheveled flung into my bucket, purr in some green tongue, contralto to my high pitched chorus. Wash, wash, what is to become of us? Wash, wash, what is to become of us?
That was Lisa Wanovich, poet, farmer, and Renaissance woman. If you enjoyed this conversation, please like it on the podcatcher of your choice and share it with a friend. You've been listening to Resilience Radio. I hope you enjoyed.